What's up, everyone? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are breaking down Syracuse ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please subscribe, leave a comment, or even just a like. All those things help a small channel like this a ton. Thank you if you've done that. I know a lot of you have. For today's video, while we talk Syracuse, we're briefly going to look at last year. Then we'll talk this year, newcomers, departures, what to expect, schedule, everything. So let's take you behind the glass and talk last year's team quickly. It was a surprisingly awesome season for Syracuse, especially on offense. This team was a top 10 unit overall, led, of course, by Kyle McCord and a completely new coaching staff with Fran Brown at the helm. This team was throwing the ball with an air raid offense. Most of their pass game statistics were in the top 10. Receiving, passing overall, and that was with an offensive line that came in around average. They were just above average in pass blocking, slightly above average in run blocking as well. It was actually their running backs individually that came in a little bit below average, but they did have some injuries at that position throughout the year. So all in all, it was a very successful offensive season for Syracuse. Defensively, a lot of injuries. Their leader, Marlo Wax, was out for a period of the season that definitely hurt them, and they just didn't get the play we thought we were going to get out of a lot of transfers in this unit. Really, they were relying on some veterans like Wax when he was healthy. Fadil Diggs had a great year, Deuce Chestnut, but it didn't quite live up to expectation. And then special teams, 117th. Sometimes you just get that with a new coaching staff and the discipline. But overall, efficiency metrics look good for Syracuse. That makes sense. They finished the year 10-3 in the first year under Fran Brown. Their only losses came to Stanford by 2 points. Pittsburgh, they did lose that game 41-13, but that was also the Kyle McCord 5 interception game. Some of those being his fault, some of those not. But if you play that game, I don't know, 100 times, it's probably close to 50-50, maybe even Syracuse winning more than 50%. So you get a weird outcome there. Then they lost to Boston College by 6 points. With that said, they did have a lot of single-digit wins. They beat Georgia Tech by 3 points, UNLV by 3 points, NC State by a touchdown, Virginia Tech by a touchdown. They had a single-digit win against Cal, a touchdown win against UConn, and they beat Miami by 4 points. That was a crazy game towards the end of the season. So this team was living dangerously, and they did an awesome job in those single-digit games, largely just because they could outscore opponents. Offensive coordinator, Syracuse lists Jeff Nixon and Michael Johnson as co-OCs. They are both back. Nixon focuses more on the run game. He was the Giants' RB coach in 23. Johnson actually was with the previous regime. He coached wide receivers for Syracuse. So that's some continuity. Defense, it's the same thing. Elijah Robinson and Robert Wright listed as co-DCs. Both of them are back for this season and will hope to maybe take a step forward on defense. But overall, continuity is good for this team. Let's take a look at talent acquisition for Syracuse. New coaching staff, so it's pretty good to see them at least 37, 34. Those are better metrics than where we've seen Syracuse in recruiting, especially in the Dino Babers year. That team was in the wilderness for a lot of the years in just terms of recruiting and transfers. So yeah, now they're creeping towards the top 10 of the ACC. Syracuse is a tough place to recruit. Being in Upper New York, I mean, you're just not going to get a lot of players up there. However, they've been making some noise in future classes. So Fran Brown coming from Georgia, being a guy that can recruit solid transfers, I think this will eventually work its way into recruiting. Never expecting them to be Miami, Clemson, but this team can very well surpass other teams in the conference like Pitt and Virginia Tech and Virginia in terms of recruiting and solidify themselves as maybe the top of that second tier. Retention's been good. Fran Brown is a player's first coach. He has that reputation, and you're seeing players around the country want to play for him. It's not just recruiting. They were 25th in the transfer portal last year. They're 45th this year. Outside of the Trevor Pena situation, this team has done an awesome job with transfers and retention as well. So a lot of good things happening at Syracuse via talent acquisition, retention, and that's already resulted in solid on-field play. Let's take a look at this year's roster. Here's our 2-deep depth chart. This is available in Discord. Transfers are in yellow. We have the year they are in school, how many snaps they played the last 2 years, followed by a recruiting ranking. It's just a star. And then there's an overall value score for all these players. What that is, First, it looks at your recruitment. What is a player of your recruitment expected to do in college football? From there, the more snaps you've played, the less it looks at that recruiting, the more it looks at on-field play. That's because sometimes you have 2 stars that significantly outperform expectations. Sometimes you have 5 stars that disappoint. So we're trying to give an accurate representation, at least the best we can, of how good a player is. 50 is the average number. So quarterback, Kyle McCord is gone. They bring in a pair of transfers, Ricky Collins from LSU and Stephen Jelly from Notre Dame. Both are former 4 stars. Collins has been here since the spring. He's a redshirt sophomore now, previously with LSU. Only 32 snaps to his name, but he's 6'2", 205. Appears to have some decent dual threat ability. There's been some criticism of him, I think is the best way to put it, through the spring. Maybe not quite living up to that recruitment, maybe not quite living up to expectations, which is how you get Steve Angeli coming in the building after the spring window. He is a redshirt junior, and we have seen Angeli, not a lot, but at times, played 245 snaps through his first 3 years. He's also 6'2", 205, but he is a 72.5% completion percentage, 9.7 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 4 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays, little bit of mobility. He had to step in last year for Riley Leonard a couple times during the season when Riley Leonard was getting banged up. So we just have a small sample for both, but a slightly larger sample for Angeli. We'll see how this battle goes. Most people are anticipating Angeli wins it through the summer. That's where I tentatively lean. But overall, what you can say is regardless of who wins, you do have a deeper quarterback room with 2 4-stars on the roster that at least have a little bit experience, not to mention some recruits coming in that should be able to win the job in the future. So quarterback is in a pretty good spot for Syracuse, even though they don't have proven production. In the backfield, they lose LaQuinta Allen, who is an absolute stud for this team. They return Will Nixon and Yassine Willis as the main backs. This is an unproven unit, of course. Will Nixon's been in college for a while now. He actually was the backup last year before he got hurt just 3 games into the season. Began his career with Nebraska, then went over to Washington for 2 years. He's 5'11", 202, and averaged 5 yards per carry through his career. He has 25 receptions. Not the most efficient back, 2.71 yards after contact, but that was not a strength of Syracuse last year. Willis wasn't much better. He was actually 2.72. So to get to him, Willis is a much younger player. We've seen him far less often. He played 127 snaps as a freshman last year, 36 carries for 130 yards. That was 3.6 yards per carry, but he did have 8 catches. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if like sophomore Jaden Hart plays a little bit more. They have a 3-star freshman in Malachi Coleman, who's a pretty decent recruit. He could be pressed into action early. This is just an unproven unit entirely. I think they'll be okay, especially with Fran Brown's background, but just not sure what we get here. I'm not sure they live up to LaQuinta Allen is the end of the story. Wide receiver, they're losing a pair of awesome players in Trevor Pena and Jackson Meeks. They are nearly 2,000 yard receivers combined, both of them just shy of 1,000. So you have a lot to replace. Jonte Cook comes in from Texas. He's the former 5-star. Kind of a tumultuous journey to this point through college football, but he's been productive every time he's played. Just with that Texas team, there were a ton of studs everywhere. They had a bunch of receivers drafted the last 2 years now. But anyway, 16 catches for 273 yards. That's 2.76 yards per route. At 6 feet, 185, that's certainly worth a flyer. And he could very well just assert himself as the number 1 receiver right away. He'll join the team this summer, so we haven't seen much yet. The incumbents, there are a few of them. They're just not super inspiring. Darrell Gill Jr. is a former 0-star recruit. He's a track runner, I guess you'd call it, with Syracuse as well. He's 6'3", 173. Last year, he caught 31 passes for 553 yards. That's 1.79 yards per route. A perimeter receiver, too, so him and Cook could very well play on the perimeter. I think he's probably your wide receiver, too, but there is a little bit of unsureness here. We still have Justice Ross Simmons. He transferred in from Colorado State, battled injury last year. He's 6'3", 212 pounds. Only 9 catches, but 1.8 yards per route in that small sample, actually translated from the Mountain West to the ACC. He previously caught 45 balls for 708 yards in 2023 with Colorado State. He's been primarily a slot receiver to this point, but he's large enough to play in the perimeter. You have Emmanuel Ross, the former four-star, he's now a redshirt freshman. He only played 42 snaps last year, 6'2", 202. What does he give you? Umari Hatcher, he took a step back last year, but they brought in many transfers. And they got Trevor Pena back from injury. So Hatcher sort of took a step back, but he previously had 30 catches for 457 yards at 1.73 yards per route in 2023. There's a lot of names here, and the only one who has that elite recruiting pedigree is Jonte Cook. Ross is slightly behind him as a four-star, but from there you're looking at lower-level players. Gill is a zero-star, transfers from the Mountain West. I think the unit is probably a little worse at the top than it was last year, but if these players live up to expectation, it could be around the same. As far as the rest of the group, it's basically unproven. Jalen Hornsby, Teron Hale, Jameer Thomas, all of them have fewer than 30 snaps. They do bring in Tyshawn Russell from South Carolina. He only has 4 catches through 2 years, so I'm not sure he's really a big factor in the plans here among the pass catchers, but we will see. At tight end, another big loss for this team, Oronde Gadsden departs for the NFL. So you have a weird player, a much different player in Dan Villari, whereas Gadsden basically was a wide receiver. Villari originally began his career with Michigan as a quarterback. He's been a do-it-all player through his career. He has 76 carries for 390 yards. If you remember back in 2023, their quarterback room was so bad that they eventually turned to sort of this wildcat offense with Villari running a lot of it. He has 27 receptions for 259 yards. He's 6'4", 241, so not the biggest guy. He's not a good blocker. So I'm not sure what they do with this. It's kind of the weirdest ball of tools that you're going to find amongst the tight ends in college football. He did play 359 snaps last year and 517 and 23, so he is experienced. Otherwise, you have David Clement, Jamie Tremble. Clement's a former 3-star, good blocker, 6'6", 256. Basically, all he does is block. He's only run 15 routes in his career, and he's never caught a pass. Tremble is a sophomore 4-star. He was very light last year at 208 pounds, so playing 12 snaps, not a big surprise. They needed to add weight to his frame. He's another candidate. It would be hard for Syracuse to live up to the hype of Oronde Gadsden from last season, but there are some players here, and maybe it just looks a little different because Gadsden basically was just a receiver. The offensive line is very different. They lose 4 starters, highlighted by Savion Washington, Jeonre Reed. They also lost Mark Petrie to an ACL this spring after he was projected to start at center this year, which is a huge loss for them. He's been a solid player. So you're down 4 linemen. The only one you return is your left tackle. That's at least a positive. It's Demetrius Weatherspoon, the former Howard transfer. He played 747 snaps last year, allowed 27 pressures and 5 sacks. Decent run blocker. Overall, he was slightly above average. So even him, there are some questions. So outside of Demetrius Weatherspoon, you move to Joe Cruz at left guard, presumably. The rest of this is my projection. But Cruz played 175 and 277 snaps the last 2 years. Only allowed 3 pressures last year. Good run blocker. It was on a small sample, but that's at least flashes of potential. The new center is probably your Louisville transfer, Austin Collins. He's a 2-year starter, primarily at right guard, but he has played center before, and he was an elite pass blocker with Louisville. 8 pressures, no sacks. Below average run defender, which definitely drags him down, but fortunately this is a pass-first offense in Syracuse. He's probably your best offensive lineman, at least your most experienced with solid play. The favorite for right guard is Josh Miller. He's a redshirt sophomore, only played 8 snaps, briefly entered the portal, but he's allegedly played well so far. And the same thing goes for your projected right tackle, redshirt sophomore Trevion Mack, 22 snaps through his first 2 seasons. These were your favorites in spring. What I will say is I think the right side is going to face significant competition. And that's because they brought in a lot of transfers. Some of these came in during the spring, so we haven't got a great look at this unit yet. But Nikhil Bertrand from Alabama, Cam Pringle, South Carolina, Zach Rice, North Carolina, TJ Ferguson from Florida State. Bertrand is a 3-star redshirt sophomore from Alabama, only 28 snaps to his name, so inexperienced. And one of the few 3-stars that Alabama's recruited. Cam Pringle from South Carolina is a redshirt freshman 4-star, only played 6 snaps last year. Those came at right guard, so he's definitely a candidate to take over that position. Rice is a former 5-star with North Carolina. He's played 44 snaps through 3 years. He has certainly not lived up to that recruiting expectation. Most of those came at guard as well. And then finally, TJ Ferguson's a former 4-star, began his career with Alabama, moves to Florida State. He played 487 snaps last year with absolutely atrocious results. He was one of the worst blockers in the entire conference, and he allowed 18 pressures. So I'm not really sure you see him get on the field either. The right side is a big question mark. The left side is a little more solidified, but even that, inexperience. I think there's almost no way this unit lives up to last year's finish where they were above average in both pass blocking and run blocking. To defense, off the edge, they lose their best defender, Fadil Diggs. They also lost a couple of rotational guys. The players they return are all over the board. Chase Simmons played 301 snaps. He only had 4 pressures, and he missed 4 tackles, which was 22% of his opportunities. That was a little bit scary. Dennis Jaquez, 287 snaps. He was a little better. 13 pressures, 3 sacks, good run defense numbers. He should be a player that gets a little more run on the field, I guess. Jaquez, he probably should play more than Chase Simmons right off the bat. They have former 4-star Isaiah Hastings back. I don't know what to say about him. He originally played with Alabama. He was below average last year. He only had 5 pressures. He is 294, but he played all over the defensive line. He played a ton outside from the wide alignment. I'm not sure why defenders at 295 are playing out there. Like, he profiles more as a run stuffer, and that appears with the 5 pressures. David Omopariola had 168 snaps. They were about average. He had 8 pressures. The ceiling comes from their 4-star redshirt freshman, King Joseph Edwards. He only got on the field for 43 snaps last year, but he's one of the few players that actually has this elite recruiting pedigree. Like Simmons, Jaquez, Hastings, Omopariola, we've seen these guys. They have not shown much. So can we actually coax 4-star play out of the 4-star redshirt freshman? We shall see. Ideally, he will run next to David Reese. We kind of buried the lead here. David Reese is going to be the best edge for this team. He's a Cal transfer, began his career at Florida. With Cal over the last 2 years, he had 58 pressures and 13 sacks. He's a good run defender. It's going to be him at the top. Can we just get a running mate next to him? And I hope it can finally be King Joseph Edwards. I shouldn't say finally. He's only been there for 1 year. But anyway, there's just more talent with him than the other players. Defensive tackle, they lost Murad Watson, but they do have a couple of contributors back. Kevin Jobity played 238 snaps. He was hurt, so he only got to play 5 games. He's not very big, but he's good in the run game, and he had 10 pressures. Deion Wilson Jr. is back. He played 188 snaps. He actually began his career with Arizona. Then he played for New Mexico State. Has not been great, but he's at least experienced. Rashad Perry's a guy that could get a little more look. He had 291 snaps, also 291 pounds. Good in the run game, 13 pressures. I think he is solid. Otherwise, you're looking at transfers. George Rooks from Boston College, Chris Thomas from Marshall. Both are below average. Rooks is a former Michigan 4-star. He transfers to Boston College, where he plays at a below average level. He's only 282, so he's not the biggest guy. Chris Thomas was originally a Florida commit, but then he transfers down to Marshall, where he also played at a below average level, despite weighing 327 pounds. Outside of Jobity, there's just not a lot here at defensive tackle. I think this unit's a little worse. Edge has the chance to be about the same, with Diggs being gone, but Reese coming in. We'll see about the defensive line. At linebacker, they lose their veteran stud, Marlowe Wax. It was not his best season. That's because of injury. He rushes back. They do return 361 snaps from Derek McDonald. He got benched last year. He did start their first 7 games. So this is the fewest he's actually played in a while now. He still finished 5th on the team in tackles. His biggest concern was coverage, where he allowed an 83% completion percentage. I think McDonald is about an average starter. They also bring in Gary Bryant III from South Dakota. He was good in the FCS with 102 tackles, 2 interceptions. His main competition is going to come via James Hurd and Anwar Sparrow. Hurd is a redshirt sophomore with 79 snaps last year, so very inexperienced. Sparrow's kind of played all over the place, largely in rotation. Last year he had 141 snaps. That was his worst performance of any of his seasons so far, but he also missed 5 of his tackles. That was 36% of his available tackles to potentially have. He was a lot better the 2 prior seasons. So it's unproven. I think you're looking at Derek McDonald taking 1 spot, maybe Gary Bryant or Anwar Sparrow taking the other, but that is up in the air. Defensive back. They lose Clarence Lewis, Justin Barron, Elijah Clark, and Jaden Bellamy, but they have both of their safeties back. Deuce Chestnut, He's a 3-year starter for this team. He started 2 years, took a little cameo over at LSU where he didn't get on the field. Then he starts again last year. He was second on the team with 62 tackles and 56% completion percentage allowed for 177 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 5 PBUs. He's been awesome every time he's gotten on the field. Just with LSU, it was a little too close to the sun. He's been sick with Syracuse. He should be their maybe best defender. Grant, he's their other safety, originally a Buffalo transfer. He was 4th on the team in tackles with 56. He had 8 tackles for loss as well. His coverage lagged a little bit with a 79% completion for 305 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 PBUs. But there's not much behind him. Jaleel Martin, 56 snaps. Cornell Perry, 24 snaps. It's pretty strong up top, just not very deep. At corner, completely new unit. I think they're probably going to press Demetrius Samuel Jr. into action sooner rather than later. He's their 4-star freshman. They just don't have any bodies. Chris Peel, he comes in from Georgia, only 24 snaps, but he's another 4-star. So that's kind of the top of the position. You have a couple 4-stars. But who else is playing the boundary? Who else could maybe take over for Samuel or Peel? Davian Kerr, he played 206 snaps as a true freshman. He started 3 games last year. He was below average with a 59% completion. I mean, Greg Delane, he played 100 snaps, but he was already behind Kerr last year. So do either of them actually push? I'm not sure. In the slot, Barry Buxton is a little bit more experienced. He had 5 starts and played 359 snaps. He moved in between the slot and safety. Coverage was a little bit weaker, 12 of 14 targets completed for 134 yards and 1 PBU. Jaleel Martin's another candidate. He played 56 snaps. They flashed, but I mean, this is a wildly unproven secondary. It's stronger at safety for sure, but the boundary corner position is completely unproven. This unit was about average last year in the secondary, so there's a chance it is worse. We will have to see. Special teams, former Cornell kicker Jackson Kennedy is back. He returns after taking over in Week 10. Syracuse used 3 kickers last year. Kennedy wasn't the worst of them. He was 25 of 26 on extra points, 8 of 11 on field goals. All his misses came from 30-plus. I don't know. He had a very weird profile. So he went 0 of 1 on 50-plus. Then he was perfect on field goals between 40 and 49. And then he missed a couple inside 40. So, I mean, he finished as the 83rd most efficient kicker. I'm not sure what the ceiling is for him. We haven't seen a ton of range, but we have seen some inaccuracies. So just not sure. But the kicking game was awful for Syracuse. We're just hoping for a little consistency, which we didn't have last year. Overall, the roster has a lot of changes. The offensive line and the defense are bigger concerns. It's also a tough schedule. This is the most important factor for any college football team. I'm going to show it to you right now, but man, I don't know what Syracuse did to deserve this. This is the hardest schedule in the ACC. It might be the hardest schedule in the country. It's up there with Wisconsin and Florida. So in non-con, you immediately have Tennessee and Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's on the road. Tennessee's down a little bit compared to last year just because of the Iamaleava saga, but I mean, an SEC opponent to open your season with a lot of new starters at every position. Tough. So, I mean, at best, you're probably 2-2 in non-con. You're not beating Notre Dame on the road. From there, they play almost every team at the top of the ACC, but get this, they're on the road. They face Clemson, SMU, Georgia Tech, and Miami, all on the road. The only team they dodge among the top 5 is Louisville. They also don't play anyone from the bottom of the conference. Their weaker opponents are Duke, Pitt, North Carolina, and Boston College. Like, where's Wake Forest? Where's Stanford? Where's Cal? These teams aren't on the schedule. This is an absolutely brutal schedule for Syracuse this year. Their win total reflects that. They're not even projected to make a bowl. I personally think they're kind of right in that Duke, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Boston College category, have them clearly behind Clemson, SMU, Georgia Tech, and Miami, Tennessee, and Notre Dame. So, I mean, you lose those 6 games, you're probably going to be an underdog in. I mean, you need to win out to get to a bowl. This is an unbelievable schedule for Syracuse this year. Not sure what they did to deserve it, but that's kind of what it is. I like Fran Brown. He's building something special. Hope the schedule doesn't stymie any growth that we see for this team, but expecting big things for Syracuse in the future, just maybe not this season. Let me know what you think, though. Would love to hear it in the comments. Until next time, thank you guys for watching. Good luck. We will see you again soon.